One of the big things, and this is something I kind of realized as I matured, I'm not going to name any names because it's almost kind of like a backhanded compliment, but there are some people who are absolutely trash at jiu-jitsu, and the majority of their students are trash at these are black belts. The majority of their students are trash at jiu-jitsu. Like, these people would lose some of my blue belts, like, easily. But they have a certain way about them that they make people love doing jiu-jitsu, and so sometimes their students greatly exceed them. So in that regard, I think that that's important, the ability to inspire people to want to do jiu-jitsu.
Welcome to another episode of Forever White Belt. I'm your host, Adolfo Ferranda. Today, we're thrilled to have a special guest on the show, Jiu-Jitsu Black Belt extraordinaire, Emil Fischer. Hailing from the vibrant city of Cleveland, Ohio, and representing Strong Style MMA, Emil is a practitioner who often finds himself in the crossroads of professionalism and an active jiu-jitsu lifestyle. He's also, in my opinion, one of the most misunderstood figures in the community. Some of my favorite aspects of Emil is that he is intelligent, effective, and irreverent. I think it is this mixture that makes those with overdeveloped egos uncomfortable. Emil's walkouts and jiu-jitsu competitions are, without a doubt, the stuff of legend. Don't take my word for it, just go and search for yourself. In this episode, we delve into Emil's early days, exploring why he initially faced challenges at white belt, like being asked to leave a couple academies. We'll unravel the confusion surrounding Emil's academy affiliation, touch on his contributions to Jiu-Jitsu Times, explore his unique Burt Reynolds Guard instructional, and connect the dots between him and notable figures like Mirkatsu, Stipe Miocic, Dante Leone, and much more. It's a truly fascinating discussion, and I personally found myself empathizing with and genuinely liking Emil. Remember to show your support by liking, sharing, and subscribing, you guys. And with that, I give you Emil Fischer. Emil, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me on.
You are a black belt under who? I could not figure that one out.
I received my black belt from Pablo Castro. I don't really know what the status is of that teacher-student relationship. He departed from the academy where I'm currently the head coach. He was the head coach. He left. I took over his post there. He is still my dear friend, but we're now affiliated under Dante Leone. So I guess technically I'm under him and therefore under Heath Pedigo.
I was going to ask you about that because I saw this Pedigo thing on your belt checker, but so I was kind of confused with the affiliation or whatever.
Yeah, it's confusing. It's a confusing situation. I'm honestly just, happy that I can still be friends with Pablo and that we're still on good terms. Like a few weeks ago, there was a fight to win here locally, and it was kind of cool. One of my students now, who Pablo had promoted up through the ranks, I don't know what prompted Pablo to want this, but Pablo comes up and he's like, "Hey, can I be in the corner too?" I'm like, "Yeah, bro, let's do it." So, we coached him to victory. It was great.
That's great that you guys still have that. Yeah, especially it gets weird at black belt, I've noticed too, for a lot of you guys out there, I'm realizing, especially when it comes to all these degrees, because there's always this separation between the person that gave the black belt and the black belt. And time goes by and then things happen or distance. And not that there's anything bad, but then there's all this, how do I get my first degree? Whatever. Who cares about degrees? But then,
you care
people
because
do.
Third degree is where you're allowed to start minting black belts yourself. Second or third, I think it's third, and I'm not a first degree black belt yet, but second or third is where you start minting black belts, and then seventh is when it changes over to that cool coral belt.
Ah.
And I do want to wear one of those one day, so,
You started jiu-jitsu in 99, right? And you got your black belt in, what, 2020?
Good recon, yeah. 2021, I got my black belt. 1999 was when I first dabbled into it, but really started training in earnest in 2011.
You're at a really interesting place called Strong Style.
Yeah, so Strong Style MMA, I joined in 2014 as a white belt. I came there with a decent existing skill set. Like, I was already able to hang with a lot of purple belts and even some brown belts at the time. Not that belt's really a good indicator of skill. Like, if you put your average competitive blue belt in front of me, I was able to usually do pretty well against them. A hobbyist purple belt or brown belt, I was usually able to tap. It's just how I was at that point. And then from there, I just kind of built onto it at Strong Style. Developed a lot of catch wrestling style grappling training there because the head coach and owner of the gym, Marcus Marinelli, was a catch wrestler and a shoot fighter back in the 80s. And then also a gentleman who has coached me quite a bit over the years, Sean Doherty, came from a shoot shoot fighting / catch wrestling background.
Well, a lot of people sleep on catch. I'm so fascinated. I'm starting to just fall in love with this.
The way that I built the way I grapple was, these are the rules. Here are rules that I think I could break. I'm going to build my game around breaking these rules. And so now it's kind of funny, like, as the coach, now it's like, well, shit, I got to teach you guys fundamentals. And people will ask me, oh, can you show us how to do that weird, leg entry that you do? And I'm like, I can, but I don't recommend making that your thing. But I do try to make sure that they understand that, for example, I had a student ask me something the other day. I forget what it was. I think it was something about a passing position. Like, can you go to this side with this, I'm like, I don't. You can, I guess. You're still a white belt, so maybe try it the way I'm doing it, but try it the way you think you should do it and see if it feels right.
That sounds very sort of ecological, if you will. What do you think of that?
I don't know enough about it, to be honest with you. I'm familiar with it. One of my students currently is convalescing from a major knee, I think, reconstruction or replacement, but he's like super into it. His name's Matt Levy, and Matt he's been talking a lot with Greg Souders, who I think is on the forefront of that ecological method of training. I think a lot of my existing training modalities are along the lines of ecological methods, but yeah, I'm always willing and down to learn more about teaching. I always say, like, when it comes to jiu-jitsu, you can be a very good practitioner in the training room. You can be a very good competitor. Those are not necessarily the same thing. You can be a very good instructor, or you can be a very good coach / corner. And these are four different things that you can be good at one of them and shitty at the rest. Right now, I consider myself to be a black belt practitioner, gi no gi, a hobbyist competitor in the gi. I would consider myself be a lower level pro level competitor no gi. You put me in front of a real pro competitor, I can beat them, but I don't always, but I have the ability to, and I'm confident in my ability to do so. And then when it comes to teaching and coaching, I'm still like, I'd say a purple belt teacher or a brown belt teacher, and then a blue belt or white belt coach.
Having watched your style, and a lot of people say various things about you in terms of like being unconventional. So I can see the ecological thing, or you don't seem to fit into like these boxes,
No.
these things that I noticed. And someone with your particular style couldn't have, because you skirt the edges of a lot of stuff.
Oh,
I
yeah.
noticed. Also, they say that you're really strong for how you appear or whatever, or initially maybe people just anecdotally watching videos of you or something like that.
I've been doing martial arts since I was 8 years old. I've been grappling since I was 14 years old. My body is built around a martial sport style, I guess. Like, my grandfather was a catch wrestler. My dad was a semi-pro boxer. Like, it's in my blood, I guess. So I'm going to feel differently strong to people that are not from that sort of a background. And then also I train every single day. I'm training with large, scary humans on a regular basis who push me very, very far into my limits. And so, yeah, I would tend to agree that I'm probably stronger than people think I am.
Now, you mentioned teaching. How long have you been teaching? At what belt did you start teaching?
2016 was when I really started teaching on a regular basis. I was a blue belt. There was an affiliate gym to Pablo. Pablo had an affiliate. It's called IZA. That's the name of the gym. They didn't have a regular jiu-jitsu coach there. The owner of the gym, Ali, is a brown belt or might be a black belt by now. And Ali asked me if I would be willing to come over and help him run his jiu-jitsu program. And so with Pablo's blessing, I went ahead and did that. That lasted for a couple of years. After that, I was kind of roped into doing a jiu-jitsu program at like a CrossFit type gym. Was not a good fit. Not because of any personal issue, just literally physically was not a good fit. Like, they didn't have a space for the mats, and so it was a whole thing. Then in December, January 2021, this very high-level judoka, he was a member of the Armenian national team. He's got an academy very close to my work, very close to my house. He reached out to me and asked me if I wanted to run a program at his academy. It's called Ararat Martial Arts, Armenian, and he had me come over and start a program there. I've dubbed it Effective Jiu-Jitsu. It's got my initials in it. Clever. And then end of March this year, Pablo quit and I was offered his position at Strong Style. And initially I did not want it with my, at the time, 5-month-old baby. And I have a business that I run and I have another program that I did not give up. It was kind of one of those things I was like, I'm going to be juggling a lot. And they made me an offer I couldn't refuse. So that's where I am at now.
What do you think makes a great instructor, coach?
A couple things. Number one, ability to connect with the human being. So like a lot of coaches, trying to think of a good word for it, I feel like they're almost dissonant. Like they don't do a good job of vibing with other people. And I don't do a very good job of vibing with people. So like, just so we're clear, I'm hoping I'm doing what I can do for my students to like being around me and like hearing me speak and like, learning from me. And
That's surprising because when I see you on other, shows or something in interviews, you seem so affable and, like a people person.
I'm not. I don't know. Like I try to be friendly. I try to be a decent human being, but people generally either love me or hate me. Like I'm polarizing at the very least. And so because of that, there are multiple people that I know of that claim that I'm the reason that they left Strong Style. And I'm like, at the time when they left, I wasn't even coaching there. I was usually off on the side just training by myself. Well, not by myself, but with like a select group of people that I trusted to help me prepare for competition. Like I wasn't even really, like I'd teach occasionally, but neither here nor there. But my point is that's one aspect. Another aspect of being a good coach, I think, is having a deep understanding of the technique and understanding how to put that understanding into as few words that are understandable as possible. Somebody who I'm a huge fan of is Jonathan Thomas. I think you've had him on this before.
Yeah.
I think that guy is the prototype of how people should be teaching.
Yeah, he's a
I
master.
think he's
Yeah,
just
for
fucking
sure.
amazing at teaching. Like I every time I see a video of his pop up, I'm like, God damn. Okay. He can take an hour-long Danaher DVD and distill it into 1 minute.
Thank goodness for people like that, right? I
Like,
mean,
come on,
geez.
bro. Like, keep it simple.
I know.
I have the attention span of a fucking fruit fly. Come on. The ability to distill that information and deliver it in a way that gets people engaged. One of the big things, and this is something I kind of realized as I matured. I'm not going to name any names because it's almost kind of like a backhanded compliment. So I'm not going to name names, but there are some people that I'm friends with who are absolutely trash at jiu-jitsu, and the majority of their students are trash at these are black belts. The majority of their students are trash at jiu-jitsu. Like, these people would fucking lose some of my blue belts. Like, easily, handily. But they have a certain way about them that they make people love doing jiu-jitsu. And so sometimes their students are like greatly exceed them. So in that regard, I think that that's important. The ability to inspire people to want to do jiu-jitsu.
You're not a tiny little light featherweight. How do you deal with those body types, instructing to those types, whether they're super small or super old, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's kind of funny. Like Strong Style, we have 3,000 members. Ararat, the average age of my students there is probably like 45. I got multiple people in the 50s and all different body types, like ranging from one of my guys, I think he's 51. He's a medical doctor. He probably weighs around 240 pounds, just fucking shit brick house. And then I got one of my guys is 135 pounds, 5 foot. I teach sound fundamentals and I try to cover all the bases. What I try to do is I try to cover all the bases. So I build a curriculum and I write that curriculum out at the beginning of the month for my students. And that curriculum's always developing. I'm always like editing it, always kind of.
You're always iterating it and stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. It's nothing set in stone. And like, if people have other ideas for me, or sometimes like the class is super small, what I'll do is I will just do a Q&A for my students.
Of course. Yeah. It's like a private at that point. Sure.
Yeah. But that way, because I'm doing a curriculum, so like the prior month we did open guard. And so I taught different sweeps and submissions from open guard. So like a sweep to mount to a armbar, a sweep to mount to a triangle, attempted sweep to a triangle, like whatever. Just kind of going through the different combinations and permutations from different open guards. So De La Hiva, Spider Guard. I didn't really do much X or Butterfly. I'm going to save those for other months. But regardless, then the next month I did Leg Locktober. So what I did was just attacking leg locks from top of open guard. because we just done open guard, so now it's a talking leg lock on top of open guard. Then this month I'm doing passing the open guard. And then each week is a different kind of style or different aspect of it. So for my fundamentals classes, it's positional work, posture, grip sets, things like that. For my advanced classes, there's the actual passing and that shit. And there's different games that we play, like the ecological method. In this way, I try to cover all the bases. So that way the little fuckers are learning, knee cut passes that I really don't use that much. I'll teach them a knee cut. I'll teach them, the log splitter open to the closed guard, which doesn't really work for bigger guys like me. Like, I don't really use that, but I'll teach it to them. And so as a result, I'm trying to cover all the bases. I think that any instructor that's only showing their game for their body type, I have had instructors, again, I'm not going to name names because I'm not trying to throw shade on my friends, but I've had instructors that I've worked with, or I've had people that I've learned from or whatever, who taught stuff that was exclusively appropriate for their body or their attributes. And those people, I think, stunted the growth of some of their students. Like, I have one student that came to me from one of my friends, and he was just annoyed that he wasn't learning a game that was applicable to him. And I'm like, I'm just going to show you everything, and you take what works for you and leave the rest.
Don't you also think there's a point where a student needs to take ownership of their training also?
Of course. But I think that getting to a point where you have the tools to be able to do that is difficult. I got to that point when I was mid-purple belt. So that means if somebody's starting under me as a white belt, it's going to take them a bit of time. And so I want to give them a solid foundation. I want to teach them the solid fundamentals. And I want to teach them the solid fundamentals for their body, which is not the same for every person. I always use these two examples in particular. There was a clip floating around where on one of the podcasts where I was talking about, like, I got this one student, she's 54 years old, or 55 years old now, and she's my most active competitor. She's, I think, 145, 150 pounds. I don't know. I don't know her actual weight, but like whatever division she's in a much lighter division than I am. Completely different human being than me. Then there's Stipe. He's one of my students. Stipe is a completely different human. So I got to be able to create training modalities that work for both of them.
Yeah, we should mention that Stipe Miocic trains at Strong Style.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's one of our fighters. And there's others. We have other MMA fighters, a couple UFC fighters that are currently training there, a couple of UFC hopefuls that are training there, and then
Yeah, Jessica I there, right?
I saw her this morning. Yeah, she still comes in sometimes to help out with some of the fighter training. She's retired from fighting, but she's doing great.
What I find is that black belts, you're so far removed from day one white belt. So like empathizing and putting yourself in those shoes again of walking through those doors.
I mean, I just try to treat everybody like a person doing something new. Last month, I started shooting because I decided that I really wanted to arm myself and really wanted to be proficient and safe with my firearms. And one of the coaches at Strong Style is a competitive shooter and is very generous with his time with me. His name is Vadim. Vadim has been helping me learn how to handle my pistols. Now going to be starting to learn how to handle rifles and other such shenaniganry. I'm a white belt at that, and I feel like a white belt at that. So we were at the range today and we were doing different drills. And at one point, I fired off 2 shots that didn't even hit my target. Didn't even graze the paper. I know how it feels to be a white belt. And I try to do things occasionally at the white belt level and see how it feels. Not for the sake of feeling like a white belt, but whenever I do something new, I always think of it, okay, I'm a white belt at this. It's new to me.
What makes a great student to you?
A great student or great practitioner? Every student that shows up with the will to learn and with a good attitude is a great student to me. All you have to have is good intention. If you have the intention, you're a great student. Now, a great practitioner is a bit harder. I've had some great students that are never going to be great practitioners ever. But like, you show up as much as you can, ideally twice a day, every day, and you're enthusiastic and you love it. And you do everything I tell you to do as far as your training goes, you're going to be a great student. You ask good questions. You're not just a pushover. When I say you do everything I tell you to do, it's not like a cult-like thing. It's more like, I need you to do these drills, and you fucking do the drills without bitching about it. Like, that's what I mean by that. Like, just so we're clear about that, because I feel like that can come off the wrong way. That, to me, would be a great student.
So what was it like writing for BJJ Times?
Jiu-Jitsu Times, yeah. I mean, I still do occasionally when the site's working.
How did that even come about? And
started with me trolling somebody. Back in maybe it was 2014 still. I was trolling somebody on Facebook, and one of the editors from TexasMMA.com, which is a now defunct blog that was owned by Mike Columbus, in my opinion, the best photographer in the sport. You've seen his logo. He was working for Fight to Win for the longest time, like when they really were in their heyday. He was replaced by Q Lee. I don't know if Q is still with Fight to Win, but regardless. So Mike Columbus owned this website, and this guy, Felix, who was editing the site for Mike, reached out to me and was like, hey, do you want to do some writing? And I'm like, are you going to pay me? And he's like, no, but, it's good exposure, good opportunity. You're still a white belt. Try it out. See if you like it. Whatever. So I started writing for him and then kind of built a resume of maybe like 50 articles or whatever. Did some cool interviews. I think I interviewed Keegan Machado. I interviewed some cool guys. At a certain point, I'm like, all right, you know who it was that encouraged me? Seymour Yang, Mirkatsu. So Seymour Yang, I sent him some of my work. I'm like, what do you think of this? He was one of the first bloggers in jiu-jitsu. He's like, you should probably be writing for some bigger sites. You have some good work. I'm like, thanks, man. So I reached out to Jiu-Jitsu Magazine, Jiu-Jitsu Style Magazine, handful of other of these sites and publications. And Kit Canaria, the owner of Jiu-Jitsu Times, was like, yeah, you can write for me. I think he was doing most of it himself at that point, and the quality was not great. So he brought me aboard, and he's a good dude. He's a good dude to work, easy to work with. Kind of let me do my own thing. I kind of use it as almost like a training diary sometimes. Like I'd scribble down my thoughts after training, and did okay.
You bring up Mirkatsu. When a lot of people think of you, they think of Mirkatsu. Now, how did that relationship sprout as well?
Have you heard of Pony Club Grappling Gear?
Yes, I have.
When I was a white belt, blue belt, purple belt, there were a handful of brands that were like my favorite brands. I really liked Scramble. I really liked Mirkatsu. Really liked the Tommy Fightwear. And really liked Pony Club Grappling Gear. And so when I was starting to kind of make waves with my work with Jiu-Jitsu Times, because some of my articles were starting to go viral and I was trying to compete a bit more, I was like, you know what? I'll bet I can get some companies to sponsor me just for, shout outs on social media. I'm just kind of see what's what. So I reached out to a bunch of companies, including my four favorites. The one that accepted me was Pony Club Grappling Gear. Pony Club Grappling Gear was designed by Seymour Yang, a lot of their stuff. Not him, he's not his brand, but he designed a lot of, like, they did that, the first unicorn rash guard that ever came out in spats. He was the one that did the design. They fell off the face of the earth in 2016. 2017, I was still repping their gear because I thought they were going to come back. But at a certain point, I realized these people are not coming back. So I reached out to Seymour and I'm like, hey man, I know I reached out to you in the past. You make some of my favorite shit. So if you want an easy sponsorship relationship, he's like, yeah, man, let's do it. He's awesome.
Besides the legs, can you tell me, like, in your jiu-jitsu journey, just give us maybe a few or one really big aha moment when you're like, oh, I'm taking this, I'm going to implement this into my game. This changes
Oh,
part
I've
of my
changed
game.
everything. Simple answer. Armbar from closed guard. Yeah.
Wow, really?
Yeah,
Interesting.
there's footage, a lot of footage actually, of me as a white belt, blue belt, and purple belt armbarring everybody from closed guard. What happened was 2013. I attended a seminar taught by a gentleman by the name of Tom Feister. He is a black belt out of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in Columbus, Ohio. It's a Helson Gracie Academy. Tom came up here, taught a seminar, taught his grip series to set up a closed guard armbar. I was like, oh, that changes everything. And I just started armbarring everybody. Like, I went from I couldn't really do very well against decent blue belts to I was submitting all those decent blue belts as well as some of the purple belts and some of the brown belts with my closed guard armbar. And I was armbarring everybody. If you got my closed guard, you regretted it. That was a big aha moment. It was just a set of like grips to get to the closed guard armbar. And it blew my mind. I was like, this is a way I can do things.
What does your typical training look like?
Depends on the day, depends on who's there. Really depends on the day. I try to make sure that I give myself active recovery days where I'm just kind of like flowing with people that I trust to flow and not fucking beating the shit on myself. And there's some days where I'm like, yippee-ki-yay. Like today was a yippee-ki-yay day. And I was wrestling with everybody, snapping people down in front headlock. I was doing very non-Emil stuff. Other days, I'm just going to take it easy. And I'll pick and choose who I train with. I'm very careful about who I'm training with on which days. I've got a couple of training partners that will hurt me if I'm not on point. And that's okay. Like, I'm not mad at them for that. Like, that's how they roll, and that's acceptable. Then I got other training partners that couldn't fucking tap me if their life depended on it. And that's okay. Again, I need those people.
It's great to have that. Yeah. It's great to
Exactly.
have all that.
I would say, like, I do really hard rounds, probably 4 days a week. Like, really fucking pedal to the metal. Let's fucking go 4 days a week. The other 3, kind of moving around, put myself in bad positions, let a motherfucker tap me.
Yeah, totally. That's interesting. So you will let people tap you.
When I say let, I'm never letting anybody tap me. When I say let, I mean like I'm letting positions get to a certain point and then I'll start working out of them. Guys, I'm not trying to take your taps away from you. Seriously. You tap me. No, if you tap me, you earned it.
The current meta of jiu-jitsu right now. I know for a while there it was just get up, wrestling. I've heard you say, I don't know, maybe a year or two ago that wrestling was the thing, what is now the thing?
It's still wrestling. Wrestle Jitsu is, I think, here to stay for a bit before the guard players strike back with some nonsense. I think the next meta, because currently it's still wrestling, but I think the next meta is going to be a lot of Matrix Guard, a lot of like crab ride shit, and a lot of like, I think Berimbolo is going to make a comeback. That's my theory. We'll see.
So in terms of like organizations, who do you think is doing it right now?
I like Grappling Industries personally. I think they got a fucking cool little model going for them. I think that they have a really cool rule set. I like Reaping in the Gi. I think Reaping in the Gi is great, and I wish more organizations would allow for it. I think that their rule set and the way their tournaments are run is really good. I wish that there would be a bit more professionalism added to it. Maybe a referee's course that you have to take to referee for them. I think American Grappling Federation is doing a really good job from what I've seen. I went to one of their tournaments. I had a really good time, and I think that the rule set's innovative and they're very receptive to feedback. There's a lot of organizations I don't like that I think are doing a great job too, honestly. Like IBJJF, as much as I hate them, like I despise them, I think that at the end of the day, they have all the top talent competing for them, so they must be doing something right. Not an IBJJF fan, but at the end of the day, winning an IBJJF world title is worth a lot in the sport. If you want to call yourself a world champion, you have to be an IBJJF world champion, period. You can't be a Naga world champion, you can't be a Grappling Industries world champion, you can't be any of that shit. I think EBI rules is always going to be a really good rule set as an alternative to the points rule sets. I think referees' decision rule sets are kind of shitty. I think ADCC has done a very good job building their brand. As much disdain as I have for Flow Grappling as a company, I think that they've done a really good thing with who's number one. Anyone that's putting on tournaments, I think is doing a good thing. It's a tough question to answer. The only rule sets that I really enjoy competing under is like a no time limit submission only. And that's unwatchable and not feasible for anything in the sport.
Is your favorite move still the triangle?
Always will be, man. I don't use it, but
yeah, I don't see any footage of you hitting the triangle.
I was going to try in a match not too long ago, and then I got out there. I was like, this motherfucker's too strong. I'm just going to leg lock him. Honestly, I just like embarrassing shit. Like, it was funny. I've been Goga plotting one of my students a lot, just because I was rolling with him recently. He's like, not this shit again. I'm like, no, it's okay. It's okay. Just smell my foot. I like moves that look stupid, like the twister, the triangle, like stuff like that I just enjoy.
Can you tell me a time you wanted to quit and why?
Yeah, so when I was a white belt, I got banned from several local academies in this area, and I was like, fuck this fucking sport and fuck the people that do it. I started training in 1999. Then I moved around. Bottom line, I started training in 2011 in Cleveland, Ohio. Like, I started training in 99, off and on, off and on, off and on. 2011, I moved back to Cleveland. I'm like, I'm going to train. I'm going to try competing. Like, this is going to be a thing I do. It's going to be where I'm going to meet some friends. And it's going to be cool. And, all the fucking cliche shit that white belts think about jiu-jitsu. I find out it's not true. Oh, these people have such good, they're such healthy egos. So I got kicked out of my first academy when I first moved back to town, a place called Ricardo Perez Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu when I first moved back to town. They rebranded themselves as Rio Pro, and they kicked me out. And I was like, this is fucking weird. Like, they kicked me out by email. Like, they sent me an email to kick me out.
Oof.
Like, you seem to have different goals than we do, blah, 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 blah. Who are you people? So I'm like, all right, fine. So I went to this other gym called Team Charge. That's the name of the gym. It's the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Center of Ohio. So I went to this academy, and I trained there for a year. So again, I trained 1 year at this Rio Pro place, and I trained for a year at this Team Charge place. Towards the end of that year, I tore my meniscus in my right knee. It is what it is. I'm okay now. So I had part of it removed, and I switched because I moved during the time that I was recovering from the knee surgery. I moved 2 minutes away from a place called Gracie Humaita, Cleveland, run by a gentleman by the name of Darren Branch. At that time, Darren was cheaper, had like 3 classes every day. I was like, this is great. I'm going to go here. It's going to be wonderful. So I go to this Gracie Humaita place, and I train there. And about a month in, Darren pulled me aside and was like, hey, my guys don't like how you roll. I'm going to need to change that. I'm like, I'm a white belt, bro. Can you give me more specifics? Can you explain to me what it is about how I roll that upsets you or your students? He's like, it's not really what you're doing. It's like more how you roll. I'm like, bro, that's not an answer. You're going to need to answer that question if you want me to make a change for you. And he's like, just work on how you roll. I'm like, all right, dude, thanks. Great, good answer. Good fucking, are you fucking kidding me? A good answer. Whatever. So I just go back to training at normal. I'm like, I don't know what to do for this guy. Like, yeah, I really did go out of my way to be as nice as I could to this guy as my coach. Like, whatever. 2 months, 3 months later, same conversation. I'm like, again, you're not using people words. Use people words. Finally, after about 6 months there, he's like, you know what? I'm going to have to cancel your membership here. Bye. I'm like, what the fuck, man? So I turn around and I reach back out to Chris Chard, the owner of the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Center in Ohio. He's like, yeah, no, you're not welcome back here. I'm like, I called you before I switched to you said that we were cool. Like, what the fuck? He's like, yeah, no, my guys don't like how you roll. Tell me what that means. Tell me in your words. What, do I roll too hard? Am I fucking beating up all your guys? Like, what am I doing wrong? So at that point, I'm like, I don't know where to go. There's this strong style place. I really don't like it. Like, I've dropped in here a couple of times. Not really a fan, to be honest with you. It's like, it's an MMA gym. It's loud. There's a million fucking people here. So I go in, I sit down with Pablo, and I'm like, this is what I've had happen. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. If you can tell me what I'm doing wrong, I will do whatever. I will listen to you. You just tell me what to do differently, and I will listen. I'm not looking for trouble. I just want to train and have a good time. This place is too fucking far away from me, quite frankly. You know, I just want to train. And I was really, at that point, contemplating quitting. I was like, if this place doesn't work out, I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do. And so I signed a 3-year contract to get the price suit. Like, it was like dirt cheap. I think it was like, at the time, it was like $60 a month or something. You know, after about a week, Pablo pulls me aside. He's like, yeah, I know what the problem is. And he's like, the problem is that you're a goofball and you're able to tap out upper belts. And they don't like that. So you can stop being a goofball, which I don't necessarily recommend that you do. You can stop tapping out upper belts, which I don't necessarily recommend that you do either. Or you can just kind of like be a little bit more chill with your submissions until we get you in a higher belt and then do whatever the fuck you want. Essentially, like that, kind of paraphrasing it, but like, you don't have to finish every submission. Just kind of let it go. Whatever, dude. You didn't tap. Cool. Whatever. Yeah. Nobody ever told me that I had a responsibility to let go of submissions on like purple belts. I didn't think that was a thing I had to do. It never dawned on me to do that. So I just started picking and choosing how I applied submissions. And I got increasingly better at that. And that was that. No problems.
What would have you told yourself if you see young Emil walking in your academy and he comes to you and he's like, hey, I'm having all these problems?
I'll be honest with you, man. Like, I feel like Pablo couldn't have given me better advice because it made it so that I was able to train. Again, I still had some issues occasionally, like where somebody would fucking like try to explode out of a submission and hurt themselves, or like where I didn't think I had it yet and I did, and they didn't tap and then they got hurt. So like, I still had run-ins and issues, but generally speaking, it really petered out. So like, I think that was the best advice, which is basically, and I tell my students this now, it's like, listen, if you catch somebody and they should be tapping, use that opportunity to transition to another position. You can have a conversation with them. You can say, hey, you should be tapping. You're allowed to do that. Like, you're allowed to speak to people while you're fucking rolling with them. I feel like people don't use their words. Like, I feel like if somebody has an issue with how I'm rolling, say something. You know, it's like one of my guys, he popped a rib or something. He's like, hey, can you not drop your fucking knee on my chest today? I'm like, sure. No problem. No problem. I won't drop my knee on your chest today.
It's pretty common for people to ask each other, hey, you got anything that's bugging you today?
Yeah, but when it's ego, it's a different thing. When it's my ego that's bugging me, and I really don't want you to armbar me, and you got me in a fucking armbar, and my choices are let you break my shit or tap, and I choose not to tap, get hurt. That's on me. So instead, now, if I have somebody in a position, like especially when it comes to legs, I will make direct eye contact and be like, I think I've got this. I'm going to let it go now because I'm good. I'm good. You don't like that? That's really, I don't want to hurt you. I want to train with you tomorrow.
Speaking of unconventional Burt Reynolds Guard, how did that come about?
As far as Burt Reynolds Guard goes, I had a training partner who was considerably smaller, weaker, worse at jiu-jitsu than me. And just to fuck with him, sometimes I just kind of lay on my side and just kind of, wait. And I found that there were some really neat entries to shit off of him trying to approach that position. And then I started doing it in competition, and it works. Like it works. Like you can really fuck somebody's whole day up with it. And so yeah, that's how it came about. Like I've had different instructional outlets. First I was just doing whatever. Then Rockfin. Have you heard of Rockfin?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I got on Rockfin because of Andy Rovat. He wrestled in the 2008 Olympics. He came to Strong Style. We were training and we hit it off. Like super good guy. And when Rockfin was first starting, he hits me up and is like, you need to get on this yesterday. And you need to put whatever, 5-minute instructional clips that you've been doing on your Facebook page on there now. You will make bank. I'm like, really? I'll try. And I made bank. Like, I made a significant amount. Like, I was able to pay off my car. It was honestly, at the time, life-changing money for me. And the returns kind of diminished. And then Facebook started paying me for Reels. And so I kind of steered away from Rockfin, started doing Facebook Reels. I should probably do YouTube too, but I'm lazy. Yeah, Facebook and Instagram Reels. I made good money there. Still pulling in a kind of little bit of income every month from there. There was a period of time when it was like thousands of dollars every month.
Wow, that's fantastic, man. The early days. Way to strike when the iron's hot.
I got lucky, honestly. Like, I'm very lucky that I made a good impression on Andy and that he thought to hit me up and hook me up.
You've had this really interesting life, and I've noticed this pattern of just running into these different people and saying yes to a bunch of different stuff and trying a bunch of different stuff and meeting a lot of interesting people.
Yeah, I've been very lucky.
Especially not being in like California, like at the time, you know what I mean?
Never,
Or
yeah.
Florida or Texas now. You're in Ohio.
Yeah, I'm in Cleveland.
Cleveland area.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate. I don't know. I'm just very fortunate. Like I meet people and I tend to just hit it off with the right people. It just winds up working itself out. Like Andy was a great training partner when he was around. He's actually now in Texas, I think in the Dallas Fort Worth area, running a wrestling academy down there. I always have my fingers crossed that he's going to come up here because that guy was great to train with. Talk about a bizarre grappler. He was trying to do jiu-jitsu without a jiu-jitsu background and was at the time, I don't know if he's still of that mindset, but at the time was refusing to take classes. He just wanted to roll. He would sometimes, like, if he got to a top position, I was not moving him. And I was a brown belt at the time and I couldn't move him. I couldn't do shit to him. And he would just eventually find a submission. And I would be like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to tap to this white belt. Dude, he's just so good. Like, God damn, okay.
That's insane. That's weird to feel those type of different animals like that, man. Why does metal speak to you so much?
I enjoy things that are intricate. Like I enjoy things that are very intricate and that are very multi-layered and that have a lot of aspects to them. I enjoy technicality for the technicality's sake. I like seeing things deconstructed. Like whatever Asperger's brain I got going here is like, I enjoy the patterns. And metal does that really well in a very satisfying, crunchy kind of way.
Top 3 bands in rotation right now for you.
Shit. Okay, so we got Soen. Soen. I mean, the last couple of weeks I've been listening to a ton of Catatonia because they just played locally up here. There's a band called Terra Maze. That's Teramaze. They're one of my favorites. I'm actually wearing one of their shirts right now. And then I've been really into this band called Currents the last couple of years. Interestingly enough, their bass player trains. He's actually come up and trained with me a couple of times. His name is Chris Bernard. He just got his brown belt. So shout out Chris. Congrats on the brown belt if you see this. But they are fucking phenomenal. Like,
I want to talk more about your relationship with Dante Leone. How did that come about? Did he stumble into Strong Style at some point, or?
So I've been familiar with Dante since I was a white belt. He's been competing locally since he was a child at the time. Very, very good competitor. Always entertaining to watch. Always puts on a fucking show. I mean, I remember like one of my last tournaments at white belt, I watched him do a super fight. He lost that super fight, but man, what a fucking like barn burner of a match.
All of his matches are like that, seems like, yeah.
No, Dante is just very entertaining to watch. And so I was always fascinated by him. When I was writing for Jiu-Jitsu Times, I did a couple articles about him, hit him up for interviews. So you're always cordial. When I was still a brown belt, summer of 2020, I was preparing for a match that never happened with Tex Johnson. In the preparation for that match, I needed some elite looks. I needed it. I didn't feel like I could go to that match without getting some looks from guys that were high level. At the time, they weren't doing any weekend training. Dante and his guys weren't doing any weekend training. So I hit up a guy that I know that trains with him that I'm friendly with. His name is Brad Schneider. So Brad had moved from Columbus to Toledo to train at Dante's. Was an aspiring pro competitor and instructor. He's competed on grapple. He's a great competitor. He won Nogi Pans at adult brown belt. He's very, very good. And Brad and I had a bit of a rivalry at lower belts. And then, interestingly enough, Stipe was preparing for a fight. One of Brad's training partners had competed against Stipe at a fight to win and had actually beaten Stipe at that fight to win by decision. And the guy was actually coming up to help Stipe prepare for the fight. And Brad would come up with him. And they came up here. I trained with him a couple of them. We started actually having conversations. We realized that the other guy wasn't that bad. It's like we just became friends. And I'm very fond of the guy. And I hit him up and I'm like, hey, any chance I could get you guys to do a weekend training session that I could come down to? And he made it happen for me. We did a weekend training session and then it became kind of a regular thing. There was a period of time where I was going out there very regularly, and at a certain point I'm like, listen, there is a possibility that the affiliation with Pablo is not going to be tenable. That's a possibility that's going to happen. Pablo at the time was contemplating leaving Cleveland and going elsewhere, going down to Florida. And I knew that if he left, I had no connection to Brasa other than Pablo, no real deep connection. And if he gave it his blessing, I was going to change affiliations. It required his blessing. So I talked to Pablo and then I talked to Dante, and both of them were on board with it. Like I said, Pablo's is one of those guys. I have nothing but good things to say about him. Eventually, Pablo left Strong Style. Very different scenario, very different terms. Things were very different than I had expected them to be. But when I went and talked to Marcus, and I said, hey, we're going to need an affiliation. Let's stay under Pablo. And he's like, no, we're not staying under Pablo. I want to have, a clean slate. I want to go somewhere else. I'm like, okay, what do you think? He goes, what do you think of this Dante Leone kid? He's like, I really like him. What do you think of him, Emil? I'm like, if that's the way you want to go, I'm down. Now, as far as what it feels like to train with Dante, he is very, very good. He has good days and bad days in training like everybody else. He trains like it's what he does for a living. He's very hard-nosed in training. He fucking goes. He goes hard. And some sessions he's going a little bit less hard. Some sessions he goes more hard or harder. It's what a healthy training environment looks like. And getting to train with him is eye-opening. You really experience what an elite guy feels like in the training room. And if you've never rolled with an elite grappler, try it. Have your tapping hand ready to go quick, because they will break your shit, especially if you're going hard on them. They will hurt you. It's not a knock at all. I'm just saying, these people are very, very good, and they don't hold back. They don't necessarily go too hard, but they don't go easy either. It's always an eye-opener. For me, I go there when I need to be humbled. I don't get humbled very often training here. I will lose in training. I will lose in competition. I'll get, tapped out, but it's very different when it's somebody like Dante, who will at times make me feel like a day one white belt.
So the academy, you ever thought of opening your own?
I've thought about it. I'll be honest, man. I run a business. I own a factory and I run it. So I've got that. I got a 1-year-old. Running an academy that I have skin in the game is terrifying to me. The idea is terrifying to me. It sounds fucking scary. Right set of conditions, I'd consider it. But I'll be honest, Strong Style's been wonderful. Effective Jiu-Jitsu is a really cool little, side thing that I do. And, one thing that's kind of cool there, again, I cannot speak highly enough of Strong Style. I'm hoping that the relationship continues on the current trajectory, because it's just been great. When they first hired me, I'm like, listen, I got this other program. I'm not giving it up. If that's a problem, I'm not the man for the job. And they're like, that's not a problem. And then my students started wanting to join Strong Style. And then some of the people from Strong Style started wanting to join Ararat. So I sat down and had a conversation with the, management. I'm like, listen, this is what I'm doing. This is what you're doing. Why don't we just offer both sets of students a discount? And that's what we're doing now. So, if you train at one place, you pay one price. You play at the other place, you pay another price. If you train at both places reduce the price down. And that way, neither place is losing students to the other place, unless, there's a distance issue or some shit. And that's it. I don't know that I necessarily want to fuck with that ecosystem. If things don't work out, I've got fallbacks in either direction. But as it is right now, I'm good, man. It's a great gig. I enjoy it. I have fun. I can sleep easy at night, not thinking about how am I going to pay for the rent. We're good.
So just some final advice on, we got like people out there that train at academies that maybe like leg lock is not their thing. Maybe they're traditional gi, and they're transitioning no gi and they're playing around with heel hooks and the leg game to some extent. Any broad or specific sort of quick tips and advice?
I'll be honest, man. The only way I've been able to improve my leg game is by training with like guys that are really good at legs. That's the honest to God truth. I first saw leg locks in action in around 2013. It was Joe Baz going against a guy by the name of Josh Souter. I saw him using leg locks to just make the other guy look like he didn't know what he was doing. I was like, that's an option. That's an option. That's a thing I can do. So I started, going after feet occasionally in training. And I was like, all right, I'm getting pretty good at this leg lock thing. And then I'd fucking compete against like an athlete that didn't want to tap, and they'd let me pop their ankle, but that was it. And then they'd still beat me. And they'd limp away, but they'd be fine the next day or the next week or whatever. That's the thing. Like, you can pop somebody's shit with a heel hook, and if you don't have good break mechanics, they'll be fine. Like, you learn how to determine the difference rather quickly training with guys that actually know legs. And there's a certain sensation when they really fucking latch on. It was like, oh, fuck, tap. So anybody that says that it's, spontaneously going to hurt you is full of shit. It wasn't until I started training with Sean and then started kind of letting Marcus teach me some of his tricks that I actually started getting good at legs. And even then, I had confidence, but I wasn't great at them yet. And then I'm still not. I don't consider myself to be great at legs. I consider myself to have very tight finishing mechanics on them.
That's a great point. I was going to ask you the importance of entries versus like control versus finishing mechanics.
Control is very important. Finishing mechanics are very important. I don't have the best entries. I mean, pretty much my entries are you did something stupid, so here's a leg lock to punish you. I got to learn from Josh LeDuc a little bit, and he taught me quite a bit. And I did some of his Zapatero shit and had to actually use it in competition at work. Got to compete against Joe Baz a couple of times. Got to actually see what was what. Learning from Quentin Rosenzweig. Learning from Dante. Dante's very knowledgeable about legs. He has really educated himself. Training with people that understand legs will help you understand legs. If you're training with people that panic tap to an ankle lock and call it a heel hook, it's tough. It's really tough to learn legs kind of on your own. There are people who have done it. Allegedly, Craig Jones did it by watching Danaher's students compete. That's what I've heard said. Now I can watch video and learn from it. But back then, if I saw a video explaining leg locks, I didn't understand what I was seeing. And I remember one time, and it actually was caught on video. It was posted on Jiu-Jitsu Times' page. I rolled with Tom DeBlash for 20 minutes. And this was at a seminar. It was cool. And when we were rolling, he kept catching me in these outside heel. I was like, ooh. I literally would just sit up and watch him do it and tap. And I asked him, I go, how do I learn this shit? He goes, you got to train people that know it. You got to train with people that know it. I'm like, so I can't just, buy an instructional and just learn it. He goes, no. I mean, I don't know if that's still the case now with all the stuff that's out there, but I've rolled with some self-taught, watched all the Danaher DVDs guys, and I usually run through them very easily. Because there's something about feeling that point on somebody that's not scared of leg locks where you could break them. Like with Sean. Sean was the one that he'd let me take him right to the breaking point. He'd be like, you feel that tension there? If you go any further, it's going to break. And then he'd do the same thing to me. You feel that tension there? It's tap. He's like, you're good. Stay there. Feel it. Tap. Feel it. Okay, I feel it. All right. You have to trust the person. You're putting your health in their hands. When I was getting ready for Joe Baz, Joe's most notorious regionally just used to snap people's legs in half in competition. Literally. This happened on multiple occasions. He's not happy about it at all that this happened. He used to cry. According to him, he used to cry about it afterwards. But when I was getting ready for him, I'm like, okay, how do I prepare for somebody whose finishing mechanics are so strong that he can break my leg in half? So I went to Marcus, who I thought was the best ankle locker that I knew at the time. So I had Marcus put me in his Achilles lock, and I'd be panic scream tapping before he even got his grip on. Over time, I developed a tolerance to it to where now he can put it on and it'll, start to bend my shin in half before I really have to tap. But then when Joe got on my ankle, I was like, I felt this before. This is not that bad. And then I was able to do my thing from there. So my best advice is find the nearest leg locker that's willing to teach you. Otherwise, good luck.
What is your comp training looking like?
I train at Strong Style MMA. I have UFC caliber fighters that have wrestled that are willing to scrap with me. I got national champs and whatnot that are willing to train with me. So I'm going to train with them and I'm going to work a strategy for the match and we'll see what happens. I mean, this guy is very good. He's done a bunch of ADCC Opens and has performed well against like really good guys. I mean, he hasn't beaten any really good guys, but he's performed well against them. I don't think he's really been submitted very often at these ADCC Opens. It's one of those things, like I believe that I can beat any wrestler you put in front of me that doesn't know that much about submissions, but this guy's very durable. He's hard to leg lock. I've seen that. I'll try, but
Is there anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to cover?
stop supporting gyms like Fight Sports. I feel like that's a thing people don't hear enough. Like, if your gym has allowed known rapists to train there, don't train at that gym.
I can't believe that we see some of the people that we still do being promoted. It just shocks me.
Me too. I never understand. It's like, why are we just not ignoring these people?
Well, Emil, where can we get more information about you and everything that you're up to?
My Instagram and Facebook are at Emil Fischer BJJ. That's EMILFISCHER BJJ. You can find me on YouTube. There's videos of me getting my ass kicked and kicking some ass on the YouTubes.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much for another week. I am your host, Adolfo Fronda. Please join us again. You know all the places to look for us and support all the things and go premium, $1 a month, not even $1 a month. Come on, buy me some coffee or something already. Come on, people. Emil, it was a pleasure, man. A lot of fun. Thanks for coming on.
Of course.
Awesome, man. All right, everyone. See you guys.